So most are your students, is it?
Yes, sir.
And when do you graduate? Next year? 2 years. 2 years. Okay. Any postgraduates? Also? Okay. And then what happens after that? Huh? Yeah, you get a PhD and then? Then what happens? Huh? Oh, you join the temple. Oh. Or what? You get a job, and then what? You get married, and what? Then you go to America. Go to foreign lands. So anyway, yeah, you can go to other planets even. So Prabhupada wrote a book called Easy Journey to Other Planets, I think very early in his career, like in a little small book. This was in response to the Russians and the Americans competing to go to the moon at that time. And then they sent rocket ships up and everything. So Prabhupada said, well, actually the yogis can also travel, but they don't need machines. They go by their siddhis, their mystic powers. So anyway, people like to travel. So everyone here is curious to go to America and other places and look at them. And it's not uncommon. We see in ancient times also people were very curious. But they didn't have airplanes even. They went walking everywhere. Yeah? So you'll see in the Puranas glorification of different places around India. And of course in the Mahabharata as well, you'll find various places all around India mentioned. But how did they go? Most people went by walking. And for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, it was walking, not only in India but around the world. They walked from one place to the other using their feet. So that's the most common practice, and that continued for many, many thousands of years. So it was just assumed that if you want to travel, you had to walk. And we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Lord Chaitanya, what did he do? He walked everywhere. He walked from Bengal to Puri. He walked from Puri to South India. He went over to Maharashtra. He came back to Puri. He went up to Vrindavan, walking. And then he came back again, all walking, using his 2 feet. And of course, previously we have Ramanujacharya going all over India. And he also went into Nepal up to Muktinath and came back. And Madhvacharya twice went up to Badrinath and beyond and came back also. And then wandered all over India like that. And of course, previous to that, we see Nityananda, Balaram, as a prayaschitta. He for killing the killing the demon, and also for killing Ramaharshan, he did penance and he walked all over India. And Vidura also walked all over India. So we have many people walking places, but usually, of course, on pilgrimage, not just to sightsee or whatever. And of course, the little help was there. They had horses, and also we have chariots, even. So that was the sophistication of travel. You could go on chariot, horses, or walk. Or you can go on a bullock cart or something like that. But these were the main ways in which you traveled from one place to the other. And therefore, it wasn't so quick. Unless we had a special chariot like Krishna's chariot that went faster than the wind. But otherwise, normally, it was quite a slow thing to go from one place to the other. For thousands and thousands of years, this is what they did. And therefore, they had to make plans if they wanted to go anywhere. Which would last, the travel would last for months and months to go. You know, what we may go in a few hours, they would take months to do. Anyway, then suddenly, in very recent history, a few hundred years ago, they had the scientific revolution in Europe, the Renaissance, and they got into science, and they had Newton, and all these people making discoveries and making theories, etc. And then they began making machines. We had Industrial Revolution. And this, of course, created a revolution in society itself, because with the machines, they had industries, and they developed more types of travel. They could travel with trains, and then later on, of course, the trains got more advanced. They could travel with cars later on. They could go by boat, but then the boats became more sophisticated. And then finally, they decided to go up in the air. This is more recent, maybe 100 years ago. They decided they would fly. Now, they made many attempts before that. They were unsuccessful, but then finally they succeeded with the first very primitive airplanes but they got more sophisticated and more sophisticated. So we have air travel now is very common. Actually, 20 years ago or 30 years in, it wasn't so common. So most people went by train instead. But now, very easy to go by airplane. There's so many, there's only one company before, Indian Airlines. One company for, 20 or 30 years. Then suddenly, there are many companies you can choose. So, air travel, very, very common now. But all of this travel basically is one place to another on the earth. You may go from one part of India to another, one part of India to another country like Singapore or Japan or Middle East or Europe or America. So it's basically linear travel, one place to the other on the surface of the globe. But, and then about 50 years ago, a little over that, then they decide we're going to do something else. We're going to go beyond the earth. So they started sending rocket ships up to try to get to the moon and then go further. So this is an endeavor to go beyond the earth, travel beyond the earth, see what's beyond the earth, see what's on the moon, see what's on the other side of the moon, see what's on another planet like Venus or Mars or Jupiter. So this, of course, requires more technology than they had before. Very, very advanced technology. And even now, all the scientists around the world struggle to get up out of the orbit of the Earth and go to other planets. That's a big struggle for us now. But still, we try. We keep trying. And if we can't do it literally, at least we imagine we can do it. So therefore, we've got the area of science fiction, and where you can go anywhere, actually, in the universe, because you can just imagine you're going there, and you can invent your own spaceship and go like this. And this is also very fascinating. People are fascinated by this travel, because you have to go at very long distances, and of course, you can't even do it in your lifetime at normal speed. So therefore, you have to invent new methods like going through black holes and traveling faster than the speed of light, etc. So we've got all sorts of, fantastic things you can do through science fiction, etc. to travel beyond the galaxy even, and to go into another galaxy, etc. This is all, of course, mind. We're using our imagination, but it shows the urge of the human being to go further and further and further and try to discover newer and newer places like this. So this is the urge of the human being. And so we're going not just from one planet to another in our solar system, we're going to other solar systems in this galaxy, or going beyond this galaxy to another galaxy, which is, we can't do that now technologically. We can do it in our imagination only. But that's our aspiration. We would like to do that. Now, of course, because there's millions and millions of galaxies, and there's millions of stars in each galaxy, then the possibility of life like ours, or even greater than ours, is always there in so many places in the universe. And if they've advanced, then they would actually have the ability to do what we can only do in science fiction. So therefore, they can also come and see us. So therefore, we get the UFOs, these extraterrestrial machines that people see sometimes, and they come and see us also. So these machines that can go around the universe are also not impossible. For us it is impossible now because we don't have the science to make them, but other civilizations which are maybe millions of years advanced could very easily go from one place in the universe to another by a machine. So of course in the Vedic literature we also have these machines. And we'll see them mentioned in the Mahabharata and in the Bhagavatam and Puranas. These are called the Vimanas, flying machines. And in the Bhagavatam, there's a whole story of how Salva, a great demon, got the blessing of making a spaceship which is big as a city, and it flew in the air. And it could fly very fast, so that and it could change directions instantaneously, which is impossible now for us to do, because if we're going this direction, to go to that direction is very, very difficult. You got to stop, then you go another direction. So it could just go like this, and it'd disappear also, and it'd appear again. So it's like, a very, very sophisticated flying machine Salva built to attack Dwarka city. So some demons had very great technology with them. And we see, of course, that Dhruva when he was about to leave the planet after he ruled as a king, he went up to Dhruvaloka, and the Vishnu Dutas took him in Vimana again. So they're very common in the Vedic literature. And in fact, the Vimana actually this is called the Vimana. The top of the temple is called a Vimana. So in other words, the whole temple is actually like an airplane from the spiritual world. So it's a vehicle of the Lord. It's of course a house of the Lord also, because the vehicle is also a house. Temple is also a house, but it's a vehicle of the Lord by which he goes from the spiritual world to the material world. But it must be a different type of vehicle. Because by normal vehicle, we cannot get to the spiritual world, and we have struggle even getting to another planet, what to speak of another universe. But to get to the spiritual world, we can't do that. So that Vimana, or the Lord's vehicle, is very, very special. So in any case, our knowledge is limited now. And because of the limitation of knowledge, we're limited in where we can go. We're limited to material knowledge, and therefore we're limited to a material destination. Okay, so what kind of knowledge we got? We got prataksha. This is literally means direct sense perception. You use your eye and your ear and your nose, etc. With your knowledge gathering senses, you get some knowledge. This is the basis of our everyday knowledge. It's the basis of scientific knowledge. We do observation, we get some results, we record it, we try to do the same thing again, we get the same result. Through this we get knowledge that this is how things react, etc. So that's one type of knowledge. Based on that knowledge, we can make inferences. This is called anuman. So this is logical processes that do not require direct sense perception, but they're based on them. So this is the second realm of knowledge, and it is useful in daily life, so we don't have to think everything every time. And it's also useful in science. So mathematics, a lot of mathematics is based on anuman. Physics is based on anuman. We have all these different formulas and things like this. A lot of anuman is involved in science. So therefore, science basically is these two things, prataksha and anuman. And our daily life also is based on all these two. But, as I said, these are material things using our mind and our senses. And therefore, it's material knowledge. All we can go, if we want to go somewhere, it's material. We can't get beyond the material realm. So it has that limitation on it. And of course, the more limited our knowledge, the more limited our destination. We can't go too far. We can only go so far. So the Vedic literature accepts these as valid types of knowledge, but it's not all knowledge, and it's limited to the material sphere. So therefore, we got another type of knowledge called Shabda. It literally means word or sound, but it is knowledge coming from authority, from the scriptures, or from the Supreme Lord. So it's spiritual. This is the third type of knowledge. So this is knowledge which cannot be proved by science. It cannot be experimented or discovered by science with material senses and material mind. We simply have to accept it. This is a fact, but we can't prove it by science at all. This is the knowledge that is in the scripture. So this is a type of knowledge accepted in the Vedic literature. It's not accepted by science in the modern world, but it's accepted as by those who have faith in the scripture. So by that knowledge, which is spiritual, then you can get to your spiritual destination. Otherwise, no. And what happens? Then you can see the Lord directly. Of course, many people say, well, prove God by showing him to me. Impossible, because unless you got spiritual senses, you can't see God. So if you develop spiritual senses, yes, you can see, but you can't challenge and say, with my material senses, I want to see something spiritual. You cannot do that. So what is that scripture? What is that knowledge? What is that scripture? That sabda. So we have different classes of that. Of course, we are accepting the Vedic literature as a sabda. Some people will accept Bible as a sabda, some people will accept Quran as a sabda, etc. Then different religions will accept different sabdas. Basically, they're not provable. We simply accept them based on faith. So some people have faith in the Quran, they'll accept that. Some people have faith in the Bible, they'll accept that. So other people have faith in the Vedic literature, so they will accept that. So we have the good fortune of accepting Vedic literature as authority. But we have to know what that is. We don't just say anything written in Sanskrit is is a Vedic scripture. Huh? No. And anything anybody writes and says it's scripture, that's also not scripture. There are standard works which are accepted as authoritative. Just as in your college, you don't just take any book and use it for your course. You have recommended textbooks like that. And some books are accepted as, some are not accepted as authoritative. And they may not be, correct. So we have standard works accepted by all the previous authorities as scripture. Huh? So we have, first of all, the Vedas. And we have 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samveda, Atharva Veda. But a little more complicated, because each Veda, each one of the 4 Vedas also has 4 parts to it. And we have Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, and Samhitas. Each one has a group of these literatures. Brahmanas and Aranyakas basically are about sacrifices for going to higher planets. Upanishads basically about jnana, knowledge, spiritual knowledge, understanding we're not the body, understanding about the Supreme Lord, etc. And we have the Samhita portion dealing with different prayers, worshipping Devatas and Supreme Lord. It's called Upasana Kanda. So we have the Karma Kanda, the Jnana Kanda, and the Upasana Kanda. These are parts of the Vedas. We don't have to do this. Besides that, we have things like itihasas, which means great epics, long stories with many sub-stories in them. We have the Ramayana, very famous, written by Valmiki, and we have the Mahabharata, written by Vedavyas. The distinction is that the Vedas are actually unwritten, no author, aparushaya. They're eternal. They keep appearing and they may come out of Vishnu, etc., but they're always the same. Universe after universe after universe. Same words, exactly the same all the time. Itihasas are written at a certain time, in a certain day of Brahma. So we have Valmiki writing the Ramayana, we have Vedavyas writing Mahabharata. So they have a historical beginning. That's the difference. And of course, Vedas require qualification. You have to be Dvija, Upanayanam. You have to get Upanayanam and get a samskar to start studying the Vedas as a brahmachari. This is not. Anybody can hear, anybody can read. So there's no qualification. So these are actually meant for the people of Kali Yuga. Vedavyas also wrote other works. He wrote the Vedanta Sutras to try to explain Upanishads, these things here. And he wrote Puranas, 18 Puranas for the people of Kali Yuga. So he wrote 6 for the people in Tamagun, advising worship of Shiva, 6 for the people in Rajagun, advising worship of Brahma, 6 for the people in Sattvagun, worshipping Vishnu. According to the gunas, you can worship these entities. But the idea is by worshipping Shiva, eventually become purified. And you advance in the gunas until you're in Rajagun, then you worship Brahma, then you become purified. Then finally you get to Sattva and you worship Vishnu, then you become a devotee. So a gradual process over many lifetimes. That's the idea behind the Puranas. But after Vedavyas wrote all of these works, he was dissatisfied. So Narada Muni, his guru, came and said, yes, dissatisfied because actually you're only going to confuse the people of Kali Yuga. You've written the Brahma Sutras to explain the Upanishads, but the Brahma Sutras are also difficult to understand, and all the commentaries are contrary. Everyone writes it different. The Vedanta Sutra means this, the Vedanta Sutra means that. too complicated. You've written all these Puranas, but the people of Kali Yuga are not very intelligent, and they're also very lazy. So if you tell them to worship Shiva and Tamagun, they will worship Shiva, but they'll never give that up. They won't advance into Rajagun and then to Sattvagun and give up that worship. They'll stay there in Tamagun and worship Shiva, and they'll stay there. So they won't advance to the gunas and come to become a devotee. So not good for the people of Kali Yuga. So therefore, Vedavyas, under Narada Muni's advice, wrote one work to indicate only one object of worship, Krishna, for the people of Kali Yuga, and that is the Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam ultimately is the summary of the Brahma Sutras, which is a summary of the Upanishads, which are part of the Vedas. It's a summary of the last Purana of all the Puranas, and it is a summary of the Mahabharata. So ultimately, it includes everything. So this is the final scripture. So if we rely on this, we can get our perfect spiritual knowledge. Okay, so that is what scripture is. So this Bhagavatam is described in the Bhagavatam itself as Nigama Kalpatora Galitam Phulam. It is the ripened liquid fruit on the desire tree of the Vedas, coming from the mouth of Sukha. So it's the highest fruit on the tree. Why? Because it is the sweetest fruit, the rarest fruit, because you have to go to the top of the tree, but it's the best fruit also, and it gives the highest bliss. So in other words, Bhagavatam gives us the highest knowledge, which gives us the most bliss. But it's also a little bit difficult to get, because you got to climb to the top of the tree. So this Bhagavatam is very special because actually the message of Narada to Vedavyas was, okay, you tell everybody to worship Krishna as the final form, but it is not fanatical also, because it accepts different perceptions of God, such that most of the religions of the world can actually be included within the Bhagavat conception of God, which is a little bit rare because most religions say, this is God, and others say, this is God, that's God, and then they quarrel. My God's better than your God. But actually the God in Bhagavatam is everything. Whatever Christians say, yes, we also agree. Whatever the Muslims say, yes, we also agree. But then we also say, yes, but there's another form of God also, which they cannot understand. So it's God is many things. We don't say it's one. So we have a multi-perception of God. So the example is given in Bhagavatam that we can use our various senses to perceive an object in various ways. So the same way the Lord is perceived in various ways, just as we can perceive milk. If we only use the eye to perceive milk, we get some information, but it is limited to visual information like color. Milk is white. But of course that's not a complete definition of milk. It's correct, definitely, but it's not a complete definition, because not all white substances are milk. We may have white water, it looks like white water, it's chalk, it's not milk, but it's also white and it looks similar. So yes, milk is white, it's knowledge, but it's not complete knowledge. So, want more complete knowledge, then we can use our tongue, we can taste it, and we know what the milk taste is. It's sweet, it's not like chalk, so that gives us different knowledge. So through our tongue we get different knowledge, through the touch we can get some knowledge of the milk, through the nose we can get some knowledge of the milk, through the ear. Each is a correct knowledge, but each is it's partial knowledge. So how are we going to get a complete knowledge of the milk? The mind combines all the knowledge of all the senses, and then we get a complete knowledge of the milk. So that is superior knowledge to the knowledge that is done by the eye or the nose or the touch, etc. We get incomplete knowledge, which is correct, but not complete. Then we get the complete knowledge. So similarly, we have knowledges of God. You can if you do karma kanda, what do you perceive God as? Svargaloka. Sattvic material condition. Very, very nice, materially speaking. If you do jnana, you can perceive God as Brahman. That is impersonal aspect. God as having no form, quality, activities, but very, very peaceful, and no more birth and death. And if we perceive God through bhakti, then we understand many qualities in God, activities of God, forms of God, and we develop a relationship with God. So the Bhagavatam presents all of these three broad categories, from the most general aspect, which would include Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, Islam, and many types of Christianity. Basically, it's all impersonal aspect of God. No form, no qualities. A little bit of qualities maybe in Christianity, but not many. Maybe in Islam also a few qualities. At least God speaks maybe, like that, or whatever. God is the creator. So when we get the creative aspect of God, that he actually creates something, he's doing some activity even though he hasn't got a form, then we start getting it more to the Paramatma aspect of God. When we set a form of God who is the creator, then we actually have a Paramatma feature of the Lord. And when we accept a relationship with God, then this becomes the Bhagavan aspect of God. So that's the complete God. The others are not untrue, but they're just partial visions of God, like seeing God with the eye only, but not with the ear, nose, throat. Partial vision of God. So not incorrect, but also not complete. So we need, the best is the complete knowledge of God. So that is given in the Bhagavatam. Of course, it accepts the other visions of God, but the complete one is the highest, and therefore we get the highest experience from that. The bliss of Bhagavan is greater than the bliss of Brahman. Okay, so the scripture gives us different factors in knowledge. One is the foundational knowledge, or sambandha. It teaches us who's who is actually God, and who are we in relation to God, and what is material identity in relation to God, etc. That's called sambandha. And then we have a process, what we should do once we got the knowledge. And then we got a goal. What is the goal of the activity? That's called prayojana. So these are actually the three subjects of any scripture: sambandha, abhidheya, prayojana. And this applies, of course, not only this types of knowledge apply not only to the spiritual practice in the Bhagavatam or in all scriptures. It applies to things in the material world as well. We need knowledge. We should establish a goal and an activity to get to the goal once we get the knowledge. What do we get knowledge for? We want to do something with the knowledge, yes? So we establish a goal. But to establish the goal, then we have to have a certain procedure to get to the goal. As in science, you get your knowledge of physics or whatever, then you want to do something with that knowledge and make a new discovery or whatever. So we have a goal. We want to prove something, and then we have to make up a whole pattern of how to prove it. Well, that's the avidya. And then finally, if we're intelligent, successful, then we get the goal. We prove what we want to do, and we become famous as a scientist or something like that. So in all fields, we'll have this idea of getting some knowledge, establishing a goal, and then establishing a process to get to the goal like that. So that was similarly in spiritual life. You have the basic knowledge, the practice to get to the goal. So with different types of scriptures, we get different types of knowledge. So if we use the karma scriptures like the Karmakanda section of the Vedas, the Brahmanas and Aranyakas, what happens? We get one type of knowledge, and we get a certain result. We have the Jnana scriptures and the Upanishads, we get another result. We have the yoga scriptures, the bhakti scriptures, and we have Bhagavatam, which has got the highest knowledge. And consequently, we get to different places. So by the karma knowledge, we get to Svargaloka. By the Jnana knowledge, we get to Brahman. By knowledge, general knowledge of bhakti, we get to Vaikuntha. By Bhagavatam knowledge, we get to Goloka. We get different destinations from the different types of knowledge. And we also get different experience of bliss. In the material world, you go to Svargaloka, you get sattvic material enjoyment. If you get to Brahman through Jnana, you get Brahmananda. No more birth and death, no more karma, no suffering, No ignorance. If you do yoga, you get up to Paramatma realization. Yeah? If you do bhakti in general, you get prema. And if you do prema and worship Krishna, you get very sweet prema, Madhurya prema. So different sadhanas, different processes give us different results. And we get those different processes from different scriptures. Like that. So, we get our heavenly enjoyment, we get our Brahman, we get Vaikuntha, and we get Goloka. So this is one of the key features of the Bhagavatam. It presents these different visions or different concepts and different realizations of the Lord through different sadhanas, different methods. Very famous in the Bhagavatam. So we accept the Bhagavan realization as the highest. It includes the others as well. But there's a further complication because it's not one Bhagavan. There's one Bhagavan, but the Bhagavan has many forms. So this is a very unique feature. First of all, difficult for most religions to accept a form of God. And once they accept a form of God, we say, well, God has many forms. And that is even more astonishing. Not just one form, but many forms. And not just many forms, many colors. And not just many colors, many differing forms. So we get animal forms, and fish forms, and bird forms, and snake forms, and human forms, and giant forms, and dwarf forms, and sage forms, and woman form. We get all sorts of colors and all sorts of forms of the Lord. We get a blue form, we get a black form, we get a white form, we get a yellow form, we get a red form, like this. All different colors and all different shapes and all different sizes of God. And one God. But he has many forms. So this is most unique. And we get half-half. Narasimha, he's part man and half lion also. So all sorts of varieties here. So, of course, in these different forms of the one God, God is one, but he has many forms, we get various forms and then various activities and consequently various revelations of powers. So some of the forms manifest more powers, some less powers. Less qualities, more qualities. So we can actually classify the different forms of God according to their amounts of qualities they reveal. So of course we have Avesh forms who are actually not God at all, they're jivas, but they got special powers, so we include them as avatar, such as Kumaras, Narada, Prithu, Parsuram, Kalki, Buddha. Then we have forms of the Lord that have a little bit of power, like sages and others like that. They do a little something, and then they disappear again after a short time, like Mohini, Hamsa, the Yuga avatars. Sages like Kapila. They teach mainly. Some show more powers, like Kurma, holding up the Mandara mountain, or Matsya, saving the Vedas, or Narayan. When they show more powers, they're called Paravasta, like Varaha, who lifts up the whole Bhumandala out of the Garbhodak ocean, or Hayagriva, manifesting the Vedas, or Vamana, sending his form all over the universe. More powers. And if they show more powers and qualities, Purna. So we have three Purna forms. We have Nrsimha, we have Rama, and we have Krishna at the top. It's all one Bhagavan, but when he takes these different forms, he reveals different amounts of qualities, pastimes, etc. And the one who displays the most is Krishna. And therefore, he is the object of worship in the Bhagavatam because he's the full form. This actually is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, a very famous verse in the first canto. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So he's distinguished from all the other forms of the Lord as being very, very special. He's the topmost form. So we have Nrsimha, and we have Rama, and we have Krishna. So what are the special aspects of Krishna? One is his form is very sweet, which means that form incites a very intimate type of relationship. Rather than showing grandeur as a God, he shows sweetness as God. So the form itself is very sweet. and it incites us to have an intimate relationship with him. He is surrounded by very sweet devotees. So we have devotees who see Krishna not as God, but as their friend, or as their child, Mother Yasoda, or as their lover, the gopis. And they don't see him as God at all. So we have many, many devotees like this. This unique form of God who has all sorts of different relationships and many, many devotees in these different relationships. That's a Bhakta Madhurya. And consequently, he has all sorts of wonderful pastimes with these great devotees who don't treat him as God. So we have the Damodar Leela, the Ras Leela, etc. All sorts of different pastimes in Krishna, not available in the other forms at all. And of course, Krishna has his special flute that he plays. And that flute playing is so attractive and sweet that anyone who hears it develops a similar type of Madhurya Prema. So Krishna is therefore very special. But Krishna is not only special, but even Krishna himself has different forms of speciality. So in Dwarka, he is considered Purna, and in Mathura, Purnatara, more full. And in Vraja, Vrindavan, he is Purnatama, most complete. So he displays all wonderful qualities in all these places, but he displays the most wonderful qualities, sweetness, in Vraja, where he doesn't show any aspect as Supreme Lord at all. So that's the highest form of all. Now, even in Vrindavan, which is Purnatama form of Krishna, according to the rasa, there's very intensities of the bliss. So we have Shanta, very peaceful rasa at the bottom. We have Dasya, a little above that. We have Sakya, which is more intense. We have Vatsalya, which is more intense. And we have Madhurya rasa at the top, which is most intense. So this becomes the sweetest of all. So the bliss increases. This is actually categorized in stages. We have prema, and when it gets a little more intense, it becomes sneha, and mana, and pranaya, and raga, and anuraga, and finally mahabhava in the topmost gopis. And that's the most intense prema of all. So these are available for that Krishna in Vrindavan. We get all stages. If we go to Dwarka, then generally they don't get up to mahabhava. Even the queens of Dwarka, they may get up to anuraga. Like that. So, very special. But even there, if we take the topmost, that is the Madhurya rasa, is the topmost, that's the highest intense bliss. There are millions of gopis. So even there they got categories, higher and lower. So at the very top we have Radha and her group of Sakis. And then next we have Chandravali and her Sakis. And that we have all the different groups below that. Like that. We got so many people there. So there's intensities and degrees of intensity on all levels. In the forms of God, and then in Krishna in different places, and in Vrindavan in the different rasas, and even among the gopis we have different intensities. So ultimately, the highest, we say, is that bliss in Madhurya Rasa, and ultimately the bliss of Radha and Krishna. So this has been pointed out by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that this is the Radha Krishna is the representation of the highest possible bliss in the spiritual world. And therefore, this is the form of Krishna that we worship. And that's why we have Radha Krishna deities in our temples, for that purpose. So in other words, the Radha Krishna in the temple is representing the topmost bliss available in the spiritual world. So, the nature of a jiva is to try to get happiness. So everyone in the material world is doing activity, and animals are also doing activities for happiness. The happiness of the animal is what? eating, sleeping, mating, defending. What is the happiness of the human being? Usually it's the same. Most people don't think beyond that. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's the normal human being in the material world. Why do you study? To get a degree. Why do you get a degree? To get some money. What do you do with the money? Eat, sleep, mate, and defend. Basically, that's what you do with the money. So, that's the normal activity of everybody in the material world. But what is the fault there? We don't know. But Scripture tells us it's all Maya. Necessary to maintain your material body, but it's all material. The happiness that we get from these things is temporary and ultimately not satisfying. So an intelligent person understands this. This is not real happiness. Why he understands? Because actually the soul does not get satisfaction from that. It's your body that's getting the satisfaction. Eating, sleeping, mating, things, all to do with the material body, nothing to do with the soul. We have the example of the bird in the cage, and the foolish person is polishing the cage but forgetting to feed the bird. So similar to eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, we're taking care of the body. Soul inside is starving to death. We don't take care of the soul at all. So we have to give happiness to the soul, not to the material body. So Scripture teaches us how to do that. But then we have these different levels. You can get higher material happiness through karma kanda. You can get higher happiness with getting liberation from the material world, understanding your Atma as jnana and yoga. And you get higher happiness from bhakti, and we realize Bhagavan. And if we worship Radha Krishna, then we can get the highest happiness for the Atma. That's the highest happiness, by realizing Radha and Krishna and service to Radha and Krishna. So, we're in the material world, but that should be our destination. That should be our goal in life. Instead of trying to go to America or somewhere else, why don't we try to go to the spiritual world? Not only the spiritual world, why don't we get the highest planet in the spiritual world and get a realization of service to Radha Krishna? That's the highest goal we can have. And it's the most fulfilling. It's the most rewarding. How do we do it? We can't use material means. We can't use spaceships. We can't use rocket ships. We can't use physics and chemistry. We got to use the sabda. So we follow the Bhagavatam process. We do bhakti yoga, and we can attain that goal. So that's our journey. And of all the different processes, bhakti is the easiest process. So easy journey to Goloka is through the process of bhakti yoga and chanting the holy name, introduced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, Hare Krishna.